Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Koki of the Seahawk Recap Show, and welcome to the Week 10 bye-week show, Seahawk bye-week show, as the Seahawks did not have a game to play in Week 10, so I just thought I would hop on here and just like I did last year, talk about how the team is performing at their bye week. And yeah, this is going to be just a little bit of a discussional piece, if you will, about my deeper thoughts and feelings on the Seahawks and how I think they're doing this season. So strap in for a longer type of video. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like. And if you'd like to see any more future Seahawks content on this channel, please consider subscribing. That'll be greatly appreciated. It helps more than you will know. Let's get to the Seahawks team stats, and let's start off with the left side of your screen here. Let's talk about the record and everything like that. So the Seahawks enter the Week 10 bye with a record of 4-5, below 500, fourth in the NFC West. Points for 210, points against 221. They have a home record of 2-4 and an away record of 2-1, and they're on a 2-game losing streak. Man, this season has just been up and down for the Seahawks in the games that they put it all together, like the Falcons game. They do really well. Games like the Dolphins game, they do really well, but games like the 49ers, the Rams game wasn't too bad, but the Rams game as well. They had a game against the New York Giants that they should not have lost and they just beat themselves. It's kind of been that kind of season where it's a lot of growing pains, and that's going to be a theme throughout this video. But let's get to the Seahawks team stats. So, points scored per game were 14th in the league. The Seahawks 14th with 23.3 points per game. Middle of the pack in points per game, but this really shocked me. Total yards per game, ninth. So their top 10 in points with 359.4, but they're 14th in points scored. That means that they're getting a lot of chances to get into the end zone, and they're doing things right, but they just can't score. That's not good. That's not a recipe for success. I'm glad they're top 10 in yards per game, but it just the red zone efficiency really needs to be better here at 14th. You're not going to win many games like that. But the passing yards per game is first in the league with 268.2. Now, this is from Yahoo Sports for the NFL. So these stats might be outdated slightly, but this is from week 9 for the Seahawks. So they're first right now. It's good to see the passing game doing well. Good to see the passing game, but here's the big problem. Rushing yards per game, 27th, 91.2. That's why the passing has been so good. This passing number has been inflated, the yards per game, because the rushing yards per game is so abysmal. And this is gonna be a recurring theme in this video is that the offensive line contributes to not only the passing game but also the run game. Near the bottom in the league, not too great. Time of possession. This run game number will also affect the time of possession. 26th in the league, 28 minutes and 35 seconds of possession time for 9 games. When you're not controlling the clock with the run game or the passing game, you're obviously going to have a low time of possession like the Seahawks do here. Points against per game, let's go to the defensive side. It's 23rd with 24.6 points against per game. That's just not good enough. Over the past 2 weeks, the Seahawks have been getting better on defense. So it's just about putting both offense and defense together because this was a problem last year. The offense would do good for a game, the defense wouldn't be there. The defense would do good for a game, and the offense wouldn't be there. So Again, first year, new head coach, new coaching regime. These things will happen. It's growing pains, but still not great to see. Total yards per game, 22nd in the league, 357.56. That's not great, man. It's not great. In a NFL that relies a hell of a lot on yards from your offense. It's not great that you're 22nd. In passing yards per game, 18th, 218.11. And yeah, just again, just need to be better on defense. I think the defense is getting better over the last 2 weeks, even though they're on a 2-game losing streak. I think the defense is finally going to come together and start playing a little better. So we'll see those numbers hopefully improve next week. And rushing yards against per game were 27th, 139.44. Pete Carroll dealt with this a lot in his tenure, and Mike McDonald's going to need to implement his system and make sure the player personnel is ready for the run defense. 27th is not great, considering where Mike McDonald came from in the Ravens last year. He had a very good defense, and it seems like, again, just growing pains for this personnel trying to adjust to a new scheme. And sacks were at 17th with 20 on the year, and interceptions were at 14th with 6 on the year. Sacks has been a bit of an issue on the stat sheet. Doesn't mean the Seahawks aren't getting pressure, but it means that they're not getting the sack numbers. They're not getting the benefits of getting sacks and putting opposing offenses in third and longs, second and longs, and things like that. So that number, I think, will improve as the defense gets more familiarized with the scheme. Hopefully, those will improve. Interceptions. The Seahawks haven't been a team since like the Legion of Boom days in like 2013, kind of to where they've gotten a boatload of interceptions. So I'm kind of expecting that to improve as well. Let's talk about the top performers for the Seahawks in passing. It's obviously going to be Geno Smith. 9 games played, has a completion percentage of 68.1, has 2,560 yards. Yards per game is 284.4, and 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, sacked 28 times, has yards for loss at 181, 4 fumbles, but no fumbles lost. The only thing I see out of Geno's stats here that really worries me is the touchdown to interception ratio plus the amount of sacks that he's taken. Because these are just sacks taken. These are not how much, is hurried. This is not how much he's pressured on a daily basis. So I will talk about Geno a little bit later on in this video, but his passing numbers don't look too bad. He's leading the league right now. He's got a really good completion percentage here. It's just the touchdowns to interceptions. Those need to be cleaned up. And obviously, the fumbles need to be cleaned up. At least 2 of them. I don't blame him for, considering they were botched snaps by center Connor Williams. Well, let's get to the rushing leader, and it's obviously Kenneth Walker. 7 games played, 99 attempts on the year, 398 yards, averaging 56.9 yards per game, averaging 4 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns. This is going to be a reoccurring theme. The offensive line will contribute to the rushing yard numbers. Kenneth Walker is a better running back than this. Glad to see his touchdowns up there at 6, but he is a better running back than this. If he had any semblance of a right side of that offensive line, he would have better numbers. Decent, but they need to be better because Ryan Grubb definitely needs to have a reliable run game if the Seahawks are going to make the playoffs this year like they want to. Receiving leaders, and let's get to DK Metcalf. 7 games played, 35 receptions, 568 yards, averaging 81.1 yards per game, averaging 16.2 yards per reception with the 3 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, his role on this team is a decoy and a deep threat. He is going to catch those big bombs from Geno Smith, and he's really in his last 7 games because he didn't play the last two with the MCL sprain. He really has shown that he really likes this Ryan Grubb style of offense because Ryan Grubb loves spreading the field and getting it to his playmakers. And DK Metcalf, a big body receiver who is doing a lot of work deep down the field. He's had a bit of fumbling issues this year that I do not like. Sometimes he's fighting for extra yards and he doesn't really need to, and then he just fumbles the ball and puts it on the ground. That's a problem. But let's get to Jackson Smith in Jigba. 9 games played, 50 receptions, 568 yards, averaging 63.1 yards per game and averaging 11.4 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns. Him and DK are having great seasons. Jackson Smith and Jigba is coming into his own as a slot receiver, and I love having this Ohio State wide receiver. This is only his second year in the league, and he really had a really good game heading into the bye week against the LA Rams. That unfortunately the Seahawks lost in OT, but he's really put up some good numbers. So I like this. As a whole, these two as the receiving leaders, no one is surprised. And let's get to the tackling leader. Let's get to Terrell Dotson. 9 games played, 41 solo tackles, 30 assisted tackles, 2 sacks, no interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. This guy is amazing. If you've seen any of my Seahawk game recap videos, you'll know that I love me some Terrell Dotson. He's been a fantastic pickup for the Seahawks. And man, now with Ernest Jones on the roster, now Terrell Dotson is moving to what's called the will linebacker, which is the weak side linebacker. And if you paid attention to when Terrell Dotson was in Buffalo, he played on the weak side and made stuff really difficult for opposing offenses. So now with the position change of Terrell Dotson being where he should be and is optimal, then we should see these numbers come up. A good season from Terrell Dotson as a whole. Let's get to the interception leaders. Let's get to Julian Love. 9 games played, 2 interceptions, has 28 yards on those 2 interceptions and 4 passes defended. Julian Love, great play from him. Love him as a leader for this Seahawks secondary. He's been amazing this year. Let's also get to Rick Woolen, the best coverage corner, in my opinion, on the Seahawks. 7 games played, 2 interceptions, 4 yards averaged on the returns for those interceptions, 0 touchdowns, and 6 passes defended. Rick Woolen is going up against the best of the best when it comes to wide receiver matchups, and he's doing really well. He's gotten a couple of PI calls. I remember he was getting a couple of those. So that's the only thing I really see that he needs to clean up. But he is a very good cornerback, and he's doing okay with the games that he's been in. Let's get to the special teams and shout out to special teams coordinator Jay Harbaugh. He's been doing a fantastic job with this team. Jason Myers, 12 for 15 on field goals, 21 for 23 on extra points. He has made a 59-yard field goal as his longest field goal this season, and he's had 58 total points to his name for the Seahawks. That's insane. Jason Myers has been a reliable kicker ever since he got to Seattle, putting up numbers. His job is to make sure that the drive ends in points, and more often than not, he is making sure that the drive ends up in points. Punter Michael Dixon, 40 punts, 1,978 yards, averaging 49.5 yards per punt. He's gotten the ball inside the 20 14 times and only had 4 touchbacks on his punts. And man, Michael Dixon, man, he has done exceptional. Would like to see his punting numbers go down because when his punting numbers go down, that means the Seahawks have obviously, not punted the ball and gone 3-and-out as much as they have. But he's been a guy let's set up this defense to succeed with some of his punts. So good to see him having good numbers. The return game, let's get to kick returner Laviska Chenault, 14 returned kicks, zero fair catches, 449 yards, averaging 32.1 yards per return, had the one kickoff return touchdown. And man, having Laviska Chenault there, I've loved him on punt returns ever since he joined this team. I said he was going to be a good special teams guy, and he's done really well in the special teams department, especially on the kickoff returns. But let's get to the punt returns and let's get to rookie D. Williams. 13 punts returned, 16 fair catches, 96 yards on the returns, 7.4 yards per punt return, and zero touchdowns. Honestly, D. Williams, he's been aggressive. He's a guy that I think a lot of people are gonna like on special teams. I've liked what he's shown in special teams. I just wish he could have gotten a little bit more yards on his punts, but that's just nitpicking at this point. Good job from the special teams returners and kickers and punters under Jay Hardball for the Seahawks. Ryan's player spotlight part one. Let's talk about Geno Smith for a second. And we've already gone over his stats, so you can read that on the screen there. But I wanted to get to my reason for highlighting him. The reason why I'm highlighting Geno Smith here, he is not only the leader of this team, but to be honest, looking back at his stats, I don't understand fully why everyone wants Geno benched. The majority of Seahawks fans that I've seen online, and I understand it's online, but a lot of Seahawks fans want him benched for Sam Howell. And people will point strictly to Geno's interception numbers and how many mistakes he's made, but they fail to mention that Geno is one of the most accurate quarterbacks at the moment. He was leading the league in passing yards, and he was doing it well behind a bottom five offensive line in the league. I've criticized Geno Smith myself on my Seahawks game recaps a lot. That's just like when he turns in a bad performance, of course, I'm gonna criticize him. I'm not trying to defend him all the time, and I haven't been entirely pleased with how he's been playing, but most of his interceptions, I will say, are not his fault. He feels like he needs to spread the field and force the ball down the field because he doesn't not have enough time to wait for routes to develop. Don't get me wrong, I think some of his decision making needs to be better so that he doesn't throw as many interceptions, especially in the red zone. However, if you don't have a good offensive line, your QB's stats will suffer as a result. And that's the big thing. Again, there are only a couple times where I say, Geno, what kind of throw was that? And that was on the pick six with the Rams that led to a 103-yard six return to help the Rams win the game. Another game that I can look at that I will say it is on Geno to not do that is in the red zone. The Mufasa pick, a safety from the 49ers. Yeah, that should not have been a thrown ball. But again, I'm going to go back to this. It's the offensive line, man. Your offensive line does not give you enough time to step up in the pocket and throw. You're going to have issues. When Geno has had time to throw the ball, he has made some exceptional throws. Do I think Geno is going to be the future of the franchise? Of course not. He's 34 years old. I would expect him to retire in the next year or so. But if you're saying put Sam Howell in now, I'm done defending Geno. Get ready for Sam Howell. Here's what's going to happen when you put Sam Howell in. He's going to get sacked 50 times because that's just how the offensive line is. He's going to be throwing more interceptions because he has no time to throw. It doesn't matter who you put behind that offensive line. That offensive line needs to be fixed, especially on the right side. But let's get to the next guy on the list, and it's Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver. And man, you knew I was going to talk about him. Jackson Smith-Njigba has been playing at a fantastic level, leading this team in receiving yards and touchdowns along with DK Metcalf. I really like how he's been utilized in this Ryan Grubb's offense as a slot receiver, especially. The big thing that I saw last year was I wanted Jackson Smith and Jigba as a rookie to be utilized in the Shane Waldron offense. We've now got a guy in Ryan Grubb who loves spreading the ball around to his wide receivers. And man, oh man, have JSN and DK Metcalf really thrived. I really like how Jackson Smith and Jigba has fantastic route running. He is a very easy target for Gino to have as a safety blanket, and he's got a really explosive release. That week 9 matchup against the LA Rams, man, where he put a career day up with, I believe it was 180 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. It was a thing of beauty. He carried the team on his back along with Tyler Lockett, and we lost that game in OT. And I feel so bad for him, but I can't wait to see what the future holds for JSN when he gets more opportunities because now we're finally seeing why JSN was the first receiver taken off the board just a year ago, and it's looking great. Let's get to the player spotlight part 2. Let's get to wide receiver, another wide receiver in Tyler Lockett. 9 games played, 34 receptions, 456 yards receiving, and averaging 13.4 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. And entering his 10th season in the NFL, Tyler Lockett is still a beast. Tyler Lockett was a staple of the Pete Carroll offense, and in the new offense with Ryan Grubb, he is still being used to spread the field. Although sometimes he can look invisible out there, from my perspective in some of the games he's played this year. I'm thinking back to, I believe it actually was the Giants game where he only had like 1 target or something like that. And it was just like, oh, wow, he's only had 1 target and nothing else. You can't deny the impact that Tyler Lockett still has on this team. In the passing game this year, he has 28 first downs, and he's a really reliable pass catcher to get to the first down marker. If DK Metcalf is not open on his first read, then he's looking to Tyler Lockett, and then he's looking to Jackson Smith, and it's really really great to see that Tyler Lockett is still picking. Been a lot of discussion online about not only Tyler Lockett's future with the Seahawks, but also the way he doesn't get much yards after the catch because he always makes sure that he goes down before he gets hit. And those are the two main concerns I want to kind of weigh in on as a Seahawks fan from other Seahawks fans. First off, I don't see Tyler Lockett playing for the Seahawks or the NFL in the next 2 years. I think he leaves the NFL at 33 just because of his age, and he's also expressed his interest in real estate, the real estate industry. Plus, he's already been dabbling in that area, so he knows there's a life after football. He knows that he's not going to play anywhere else. He's said as much. He loves being a Seahawk. He loves being here, and if he's getting cut or he's getting traded, he's going to retire. So he's staying a Seahawk until they don't want him anymore. As for his possession catch style, I don't mind that at all. This late in his career, he's entering his 10th season. He's 31 years old, and that's just how he preserves his body. Tyler Lockett has extended his playing career by not taking as many hits across the middle. So I don't really blame him for that. Overall, he's been a fantastic wide receiver, and although he isn't getting as many targets as he used to, he's allowing JSN and DK to flourish on this team by just being there. Tyler Lockett still draws a lot of attention. That's why he seemed invisible in some of the games that he's played because he's still drawing a lot of attention because people know how good of a wide receiver Tyler Lockett is. They know that Tyler Lockett can still take the top off even at his age. If you leave him open, he's going to get his catches. So you better be prepared for that. That's why he's gotten a little bit less targets over the years. The next player on this list, it's Derek Hall, outside linebacker, 9 games played, has 15 solo tackles, 10 assisted, 5 sacks, 0 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. Despite some of Derek Hall's penalty issues this season, I think it's safe to say that Hall has really shown up this year in the pass rushing department, and in my eyes has taken over Uchenna Nwosu's job when it comes to starting at the right outside linebacker position. This third-year player from Auburn leads the team in sacks and has 2 forced fumbles on the season. Boyamafe and Derek Hall are the future for this Seahawks pass rush, and because of how well Derek Hall's been playing on the field, the Seahawks defense has forced the most three and outs and has put up some really great pass rushing numbers on defense. He should have a lot more sacks. Him and Boy Mafia should have a lot more sacks, but at least they're creating enough pressure where they need to make the opposing quarterbacks, think about throwing the ball quicker. And that's and with Derek Hall and Boyamafe playing so well, especially Derek Hall, he has really shown that, oh yeah, Nintendo Nwosu hasn't played in over a year and a half. I can take that mantle. I'm going to take that spot and I'm going to show why I should be starting. And he's really shown up today. The only issue I have with him is his penalties. Some of his roughing the passer calls. He's gotten called for roughing the passer, I think, couple of times in this season, and he's had a bit of a jawing match with Jaron Reed and some of his teammates and things like that. So those kind of things, as a young player, you're a little bit of a hothead. You need to kind of simmer down and make sure that you're doing your job properly and legally so that you don't get flagged as much as he has this season. Byron Murphy, 6 games played, 8 solo tackles, 12 assisted, half a sack, and no forced fumbles. And despite how Byron Murphy's stats look this season, the 16th overall pick has looked great this year, in my opinion. He's only played 6 games this season due to him being injured. However, when he's in those 6 games, he's really done a lot of things off the stat sheet that I think makes this Seahawks D line and edge rusher group more complete. This young DT from Texas has been kind of the proverbial glue that's allowed the Seahawks defensive front to play more aggressive to get to the QB. And he's also been one of the main guys who have been stopping the run for the opposing offenses. When he is not there, the run defense struggles because they don't have Byron Murphy's size and skill set to plug in those gaps. And that's the big thing. That's why I say he does a lot of things off the stat sheet because all I've heard about Byron Murphy has been not only his mentality for the game, echoed by Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams thinks he's a veteran, even though he's a rookie. And, it's just the way he carries himself. It's the way he preps for games. It's the way he brings the intensity. And remember, Byron Murphy, again, like I said right there, is the proverbial glue. It allows guys like Jaron Reed and Jonathan Hankins and Roy Robertson Harris to get in there, play loose, play free, because they know that Byron Murphy is going to just eat up space. He's a space eater, and that's his job in the run defense. He's not getting sacks. Those sacks will come eventually. He's still a rookie. He's still learning the NFL. So I've really liked what I've seen out of Byron Murphy the second this year. Free safety, Julian Love, 9 games played, 47 solo tackles, 18 assisted tackles, 0 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 passes defended. Julian Love, in my opinion, has played great this season. He's one of the best players in the Seahawks secondary this year, and he's very aggressive when it comes to breaking up passes and making plays, which can sometimes backfire on him. However, he's showing an effort and an intensity I think Mike McDonald really likes to have out of his safety position. And when I say he's he's got an aggressiveness to his game, he's making plays. He's flying all over the place. And one of the things that bites him with his aggressiveness was the Deebo Samuel touchdown. I think it was in the first quarter where Deebo Samuel just runs a simple fly route. Julian Love's like, okay, I got this pick. I'm gonna either break a pass or I'm gonna get a pick. And he completely flies, misses his cue, and Debo Samuel just burns everyone else and gets the touchdown. That's what I mean by it burns him a little bit with his aggressiveness, but we want that aggressiveness. We want to show that kind of intensity, that effort that Julian Love is showing. He's done exceptional this year. Not to mention that Love has the most solo tackles out of anybody on this team with 47. He also is second on the team behind Terrell Dotson in total tackles with 65. So it just shows that Julian Love is a reliable tackler. Something that the Seahawks missed last year was tackling after contests. And Julian Love has just come in, played really well last year in the tackling department, and has continued that kind of stretch. So I really like having Julian Love as the starting free safety for this team. What has gone well? For the new regime of Seahawks football, I honestly look back at the first 9 weeks of the season for the Seahawks and think a 4-5 record entering the bye week is not as bad as it seems. Sure, there are things to work on. However, I think people forget, especially in this fan base, that the Seahawks were not going to make the Super Bowl this year or potentially even make the playoffs. Remember, we went through a massive regime change, firing Pete Carroll and his coaching staff. 14 years of Pete Carroll on this team being not only the coach, but also being the player personnel guy is a big switch up. Now John Schneider is in charge of the player personnel. They've got Mike McDonald to bring in to help sort out this run defense. And that's a massive, massive change. The passing game under Ryan Grubb has looked really good, and I like his schemes and motions that he is doing for this team. I've really liked what he's brought into this team. I like that he's got an actual scheme where he's not throwing third and long and throwing screen passes everywhere. He's actually spreading the field. He's making use of all the lethal weapons we have on the Seahawks offense. So that's great to see. I also do like parts of the Seahawks defense. I think with one more year of scheming and getting to know the playbook, this team could be playoff contenders next year or the year after. Give Mike McDonald, he just came in last offseason. You give him a full year of preparation to evaluate this team and then make changes to the player personnel to bring in more guys that he likes instead of Pete Carroll. Because remember, this team is mostly 90% still Pete Carroll player personnel. What to improve on? I think the Seahawks really need to improve on the right side of the offensive line. Again, it's not really their fault. They weren't expecting George Fant to go down and have issues like he's had. They didn't expect Stone Forsythe to be placed on IR, and they didn't expect to start a sixth round pick at right tackle. I get that. The injuries do happen, and Don Schneider should know at this point. He's been there for all of it. He's been there for Pete Carroll's tenure, and now he's being here for this. The right side of this offensive line is not good enough. The offensive line should be a really big priority for this team because if you can't get an offensive line, your offense fails, and that's a big problem. They need to give Gino more time in the pocket if they want to win more games and move above 500 and potentially have a shot at making the playoffs. On the defensive side of the ball, they still have trouble stopping the run with their defensive front. And that has also been a problem under Pete Carroll. They have made some moves to try and address this issue, and although it seems to be working, they still need to be working on their run fits. And that is a huge thing with themselves as well. With the Seahawks team, they've had a bad run defense for the last couple of years. Mike McDonald was supposed to come in and fix that, and over the last 2 weeks, he's at least making some progress on that front. Also, another thing that I didn't put down here to improve on is the miscues, the fundamentals, the amount of turnovers and the amount of fumbles needs to be fixed. Getting the run game more involved needs to be a thing. And Ryan Grubb has started to do that. He gave 25 carries to Kenneth Walker last week, and he just still couldn't get going. So that also needs to be improved from Kenneth Walker's side and the offensive line again. But I think that'll get better. A week of rest is going to help them a lot. Overall, while I'm not happy with the Seahawks being below 500 at 4-5 and last place in the NFC West, I did say before the season in my season predictions video that I had no expectations for this team whatsoever. I said if they make the playoffs, great. If they didn't make the playoffs, it would really suck and I would be really mad, but I would kind of expect them not to. All I wanted to see out of this season was the player personnel putting in the effort to try and win games. If they kept games close, I would be happy. The whole entire coaching staff is new, so they would be going through some growing pains, and we're seeing that this season. There's a lot of things to work on, but give it another year, and I think you'll see the Seahawks pushing for the playoffs again. You just got to have faith in this team and trust the process. And that goes for the rest of this year as well. I'm just going to say that goes for the rest of this year as well because the Seahawks are at 4-5. The top of the West is the Cardinals at, I believe, 6-4 now on the season. That's 2 wins away. You're also facing the 49ers in week 11, and then you're facing the Cardinals in week 12. You beat both your divisional opponents there. Guess what? You're now 6-5 on the season with 2 wins over your divisional rivals, and that'll probably boost you up, if not into first, into second, and then it comes a playoff push. Anyways, guys, that is it for this Seahawk bye-week show. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How do you think this season is going so far for the Seahawks? I would love to have a discussion with you guys. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video for week 11 as the Seahawks take on the 49ers. Go Hawks, go! And let's see if the Seahawks can get back to 500 at 5-5 on the year next week. Take care of yourselves. Have a good day.